Okay.
Yep.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Geopolitics in Conflict. You're very excited to be with you. How are you, by the way?
I'm happy Halloween.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Happy Halloween, everybody.
Yeah. Do you guys celebrate Halloween? Whoever.
Yeah,
I don't.
put in the chat
Yeah,
whether
I
you guys
don't.
celebrate Halloween
don't.
or I mean Halloween is just kind of part of the
I
sphere
know.
here.
It's just
Whether you celebrate or
my
not.
personality is not for that. I don't know.
Okay.
That doesn't mean I would not give candy to the kid. Whatever. It's just sometimes when you have a big dog sitting at the front, when I leave the door open, they kind of freak out. So, but anyway. Very, very excited to be with you guys.
I will also like to say I'm wearing the shawl that David got me from China.
Yeah, that's a Chinese silk.
It's very beautiful.
So I said, yeah, why not?
I thought it would be very festive for today.
Well, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. So
okay, I'm going to ask one question because I think it's going to be funny.
Go ahead.
If David were to dress up as something for Halloween, you guys put in the chat what David should dress up for Halloween.
That means the world is coming to an end.
No.
I don't know.
Yes. What would David be for Halloween, guys? What would David be for Halloween?
I'd be curious to see. I'll really be curious to see what you guys write down. So, Hank, NG, good afternoon, Dr. Elizabeth. Good afternoon.
And thank you for saying hello to me too. Sometimes I feel kind of left out.
No, Hank is a good guy. He's an avid supporter, a very, very wonderful human being. So I read the comments and all that stuff. So, and thanks to all of you guys being here. Hamed Sidi, Timeline Dunkley, Juan Kisi, and all of you. So very, very excited. Well, we decided on what we're going to be addressing for you in this live stream. And the consensus we decide on collectively is that we're going to be addressing, it's not about domestic politics here in the US. We don't do that. And for me personally, I don't do that because I know how toxic the domestic politics.
Oh my gosh, it's insane.
So to me, it just doesn't make any sense to be just spending energy on something that is, useless. Let me use the term. However, there is one particular aspect that we decided to address, and we're going to be addressing has to do with the global economy vis-a-vis the US presidential elections. Because here is the thing. Doesn't matter who wins the elections here in the US. There will be an impact on the global economy.
Absolutely.
So, and that is why we decided, you know what, we're going to approach this one here from this angle, while linking also BRICS, linking also the recent report of the international public debt.
Oh,
we're going to be linking also the chip industry in Taiwan. And as a matter of fact, we're going to just touch on that, but we're going to do, as a matter of fact, how about if we ask the community for that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Would you guys like us to do a standalone video just on Taiwan chip industry?
And I'll give a caveat on this because this to me is one of the most interesting things that's going on. So if you're an investor of any kind, if you're paying attention to the investment markets right now, everyone is talking about large investments going into artificial intelligence, right? A lot of people are talking about it, and billions of dollars are going into AI investment. There is a strong tie, like a tie that is impossible to do AI without Taiwan.
Okay.
You cannot do AI to the scale that the Western world or the globe in general wants to do without Taiwan. Do you guys want to know more about that? Because when I found this, I was like, anyone who is investing knows what's happening here. So anyway, if you guys are interested in that, we'll do a show on it.
Yeah, we can do a show independently. Well, just on that note, before we jump into our topic, interesting enough is that
give this up.
Yesterday, it was a pitch from Elon Musk. And you know where?
Where?
In the Gulf states, in the Middle East, asking for investors for the AI.
Yes.
AI companies. I was like,
huge.
Interesting.
It is. AI is very, very interesting because I think there's a fundamental, and I know this is a little bit of a side topic, but it's also not.
Yeah.
So AI is very interesting because most people don't really know what to do with AI, right? Like you can use ChatGPT a little bit. For the most part, people don't really understand what to do with it yet because it's kind of in its infancy in terms of integration into the world we have right now. But it's possibilities are endless
Yeah.
in terms of automation, which is what most people are afraid of in terms of, losing jobs and all of that. But it also moves technology forward in a very interesting way. It's also, terrifying in its own right. And
Of
there's,
course.
there's a lot of facets to it. But
Yeah.
when you look at geopolitics alone, you cannot separate what's happening right now geopolitically from what's happening with AI.
Yeah. Well, if you guys depend on your answer on chat box, we'll check it out later on.
Yeah.
We'll be happy to do that topic for you. All right, let's dive into our topic of today, and it has to do with U.S. elections and the global economic outlook. So,
Yep.
so here's the fact: the outcome of the presidential elections affect not only the U.S.
Mhm.
but also the world or global economy, for that matter.
Absolutely.
And why is this important? Because you have to consider that the U.S. makes up about almost 20%
yeah.
of the world total income, largest national economy, because we still are major player,
Absolutely.
of course, and is one of the leading global traders. So, and this is why you're going to have to think about, well, who's the next president is going to be, the role that will be in, for example, taxes, in tariffs,
Right.
and this is why, if we are to say hypothetically, if Trump wins, what
Right.
should we expect? One major thing that comes up,
Yeah.
it has to do with trade with China.
Absolutely.
This is a foregone conclusion. If Harris wins,
Mhm.
what should we expect? The
Absolutely.
continuation of the
Same
thing.
the same
So
thing.
this
that's
is
happening.
why it's very, very important to understand the impact not only on Americans but the rest of the world.
Mhm.
There is another thing, that the outcome of these presidential elections, because there were only, at least based on what we found, two economic outcomes.
Mhm.
One is that it will be, if Trump wins, it will be a sort of a revision, or we're going to reverse back to 2016's. You all remember 2016, 2020
Mhm.
economy, what it was. And what was it marked by?
The COVID pandemic.
The COVID, that's one, but also the tensions with China, because it was President Trump that introduced the tariffs.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So this is why we wanted to, we're going to address some of this one, and would like to, of course, have your inputs into all this. So I had a chance to read some articles, and we will put the links for you guys, by the way. So one of the article came up from the Journal of International Law and Commerce, and this was the what's her name, Rita Gopinath. She's an analyst regarding the financial and global economy, and she stated, and I quote here: "What happens in the U.S. matters for the U.S. and matters for the rest of the world."
Yeah.
And her argument was that the outcome of the U.S. elections will impact the global economic order.
Well, so it kind of can't help but do that, because at this moment,
Yeah.
the United States is still the primary player in terms of economics globally. It is still the primary player in terms of politics globally. Like, if you look at the big conflicts that are going on right now,
Yeah.
you look at the Middle East, you look at what's happening with Israel, you look at Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah.
You look at these big conflicts, and even the ones that were going on before that. You look at Afghanistan and Iraq and the Middle East
And Yemen.
Yeah. Who was the big player in all of these major geopolitical events, right? That's the United States. And
meaning the one that created the problems.
Yes.
Let's say it that way. Let's say it that way.
Yes, definitely. But without the US's involvement, those situations would not be able to be what they are, right? It's just unquestionable that that's true.
Yeah.
The United States is still the largest economy, though the United States and China are kind of getting neck and neck, but the United States still is, and China is large. One of its largest trading partners is the United States still, right?
Yeah.
So you can't actually separate the United States from really anything major that's going on globally, because it's either pro-United States or anti-United States, right? Like in the case of BRICS, it's very anti-United States or the Western world, whereas, in the G7 or whatever, it's pro.
Yeah. But excuse me for a second here, because before I forget the thoughts, you mentioned BRICS.
Yeah.
But here is the misconception. And the misconceptions were even about the Saudis, like, for example, their recent decision.
Yeah.
All of the arguments that I've seen coming out of think tanks, some analysts in the West, you know what the argument is? Is this saying that BRICS is a counterweight and against the West? when in reality it is not.
Yeah.
The BRICS bloc is nothing but another alternative to the West.
Yeah.
There are two distinctive wording for this.
Yeah.
While the West is pushing the narrative that this entity, BRICS, that is anti-West and anti-that.
Yeah.
But hardly anybody talks about it, meaning BRICS being an alternative, which is what it is.
Yeah.
BRICS are saying, well, not against the West. It's just we want to create an alternative option for countries to choose.
Yeah.
It's like you and I, when we go to grocery shopping, do we have to go and buy only one item because that's what's been put in front of us? Or do we have some to choose from?
Although I will say, if you look at the amount of companies that own almost all of our foods, it's like 5 companies.
Oh, yeah, I know.
So it's the illusion of choice because there's different brands, but it's the same companies. So,
but it becomes the idea before we buy the item, we do our own. I do my own research before I buy an item.
Absolutely.
So. But
I scan everything with Bobby approved, the Bobby approved app before I buy it.
But my point is, I have alternatives.
Yeah.
I have choices here. So that's the way I see it, how BRICS is. And this is why we have to understand, for example, with the outcome of the US elections, it won't matter who's the president because both of them are unqualified. I'm going to say this straightforward. Don't choke on it because it's the truth.
It's the truth.
Yeah, it was just, but the facts are the facts. Because as an American, I'm going to have to wonder what difference anybody who wins the election is going to make to my life.
Okay. So there are a couple of really important things that I think are going to affect the global scope as well as the domestic one, depending on who wins. The first is that, unfortunately, I believe that this election the elections keep getting more and more and more divisive. And I think this one is sort of like at peak divisiveness. So regardless of who wins, my concern, this is just my personal concern. And then I also read that Ray Dalio is also pointing towards some type of civil conflict here in the United States, based on, and there's some people talking about this. I hope this does not happen. Okay. I hope this does not happen. But like I said, Ray Dalio is even talking about sort of getting closer and closer to a civil type war. And both sides here have been so, polarized. Really, both sides have been so polarized that it's very hard. It's even weird to listen to people who are on either side, because I am on neither. I'm on neither. I am on the part of logical and reasonable thinking in choosing what you believe based on, or what you want based on what the actual policies are, and not on, one side or another side, or one side's evil or the other side's evil. That's like insanity to me. It's all humans. It's all people. And everyone believes what they believe for a reason. Even if I think that's crazy, everyone, they're entitled to their opinion. So I have very big concerns about that after the election. So one of the things that has come up is, depending on who wins, is the other sides, the supporters of the other side, are they going to allow that person to actually take office in January? Or is there going to be some kind of uprising that destabilizes our country? If the United States is destabilized internally, that means some very, very big problems, not only for the United States, but a lot of countries tie their trade to the United States. A lot of countries tie their currency to the US dollar. So as the US destabilizes, if the US destabilizes all at once, like a civil war, for example, I think that would mean very bad things, not just for the United States, but for the rest of the world in terms of stability.
Yeah. I had a chance to read an article by Jensen Wang. He is a professor of, an associate professor, not a professor, associate professor of finance at the University of Technology in Sydney. He said, and I quote, just want to share this with you because it was very, very insightful. There is no shortage of reasons to be nervous. Meaning about the outcome of the election.
For sure.
Both sides have outlined radically different visions of America's economic future with major implications for the rest of the world. All of this stands against the backdrop of simmering tensions with China. And that's exactly what we mentioned about in the case of Trump's winning. With China and ongoing crisis in the Middle East, the price of gold, a common way for investors to hedge against uncertainty, has soared to a record height.
Mhm.
End of quote. And we did talk about this last time,
Yeah.
as far as to understand why all of a sudden the gold prices are
Well,
jumping up.
It's
all the way.
because we're seeing uncertainty. Markets hate
Exactly.
uncertainty, and
For
oh
sure.
god, this like gives me chills.
Yeah.
But I was watching an interview with Larry Fink from BlackRock.
Oh.
Talk about basically how markets hate uncertainty, and so what they do is they make sure there's certainty in markets,
Yeah.
which isn't necessarily good for the rest of us. But he talked about that. And right now we have massive uncertainty because you're right. So the
Yeah.
Biden administration has been very supportive of the conflict with Russia, between Russia and Ukraine. And Trump has been very, very, very vocal about being very anti-China. And so, but both of them actually have been pretty steady on the Israel
Oh yeah, of
conflict.
course, because they can't. They
Yeah.
have no choice in the matter. And
Yeah.
for Larry Fink, that guy is evil. No, I say
Yeah.
it. I don't hold back.
Sure.
You know, like if you only know what he's done to some other countries. I'll give you just a quick example. It has to do with Argentina.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's evil. Anyway, but yeah, you're absolutely correct. For both of them, their stand on Israel, they can't do anything.
It's more or less the
But
same.
also that gives you an idea who controls
Right.
the political process inside the United States.
Right.
When the American people vote, that's just an illusion. It's just an illusion, guys.
Absolutely.
I'm here to tell you. I used to teach government. You kind of put the arguments for the students to understand. Yeah. I can't, tell them what to do. They're gonna have to reach that conclusion themselves. What I provided them was the information, the knowledge, and for them to reach that conclusion. Well, just because your mom and dad are Republican doesn't mean necessarily you have to be,
right.
or vice versa,
right.
or be none. Especially where our country is headed. Right. And it becomes that argument of when we think about the big picture, I will always look at it as, it won't matter what the outcome is. How is that going to translate to the average citizen in the street?
Well, and here's the thing about politics fundamentally, okay? So if you have a business, okay, let's say you're a small business owner. To bring it down to just like a regular level, right? Like a regular everyday person level. Let's say you own a small business. Your job is to make sure your small business does well. Make sure that you have access to the supplies you need. Make sure you have access to the people who want to buy it, ease of buying it, reliable ways to buy it, all of that, right? Large corporations are the same, right? It's their job. And I disagree with this fundamentally, okay? I fundamentally disagree with that shareholders are the most important. I think the human beings that it impacts are the most important, but that's not the way that corporations are set up. Okay. Yeah. And there was like a whole thing with Henry Ford where he tried to reinvest back into the workers, and then he was sued by the shareholders and all of that. Basically, it set precedent that the workers here in the United States don't matter as much as shareholders. That shareholders, there is a legal obligation for companies to get the maximum amount of benefit for shareholders possible. So they're legally basically required to do that. Okay. The problem with that is that means that they need to solidify where they get their supplies from, right? Like you cannot build XYZ thing if you do not have reliable access to supplies. Okay, great. If you do not have reliable access to markets to sell it to, then you cannot operate as a business. So if you have a different politician coming in every 4 years, changing what your landscape looks like,
that's not good.
It's not good. What are you going to do? That's complete instability in almost every single way. Because if somebody comes in with all these radical policies, number one, they could dictate that shareholders don't come first. They could dictate that people come first, like Bernie Sanders was trying to.
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders was kicked out of the race by his own Democrat, by Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
So it's like crazy to even think like that corporations have any other responsibility when their stated responsibility is to their shareholders, and markets do not like
Yeah.
when it is unstable.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so it's like crazy to even think that this isn't happening, because it's like, I don't know, it makes a lot of sense.
That's true. But the facts remain is that the outcome, a lot of people are watching. When I say people, I'm referring countries.
Mhm.
A lot of countries are watching now, waiting to see what the outcome is going to be. I mean, I look at it just 2 examples. I
Mhm.
look at 3 examples actually: NATO, the
Yeah.
EU, and BRICS.
Yeah.
All of them are like watching from a distance, of course, to see what they are, because the decisions that whomever occupies the White House,
Mhm.
whether it's a continuation of the current administration,
Right.
or candidate Trump wins the election and goes back to what it was before,
Yeah.
it will end up at the same outcome, the impact on the global economy one
Right.
way or another. And this is why you're seeing now, in the case of BRICS, they are moving forward.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter what the rest of the world says. They
Yeah.
are moving forward, and there is expectations that within a decade you're looking at a massive output from BRICS countries.
Absolutely.
Now, the only problem for BRICS in itself, BRICS suffers from internal sort of, I won't want to
Yeah.
use the term fragmentation, because that's a strong word, but there is lack of, if I may use the term, cohesiveness
Mhm.
that exists from within. And
Yeah.
you look at it for the type of either the countries that's been invited and the
Mhm.
ones that have been invited and turned down, like the case of Saudi Arabia, even though Saudi Arabia is saying, oh, it's for geopolitical considerations why we
Mhm.
have turned down the full membership. I disagree with that.
Yeah.
As one, been around long enough to
Mhm.
know how Washington operates. And in this aspect here, no, it's not about geopolitical consideration, it's
Mhm.
other. But on the other hand, you look at as another example, and I'll share with you guys 2 countries, Brazil
Yeah.
and India. So we'll take the case of Brazil. Why did Brazil blocked
Mhm.
Venezuela?
That's a great question.
I was
Absolutely.
surprised.
Yeah.
I was really surprised as to why,
Mhm.
because my thinking was, and way back I used to think in terms of what will Venezuela add to BRICS? Well,
Oil, straight up, oil and
exactly?
gold.
So you're
Absolutely.
talking about what is at the core of
Yeah.
any development, economically speaking,
Yep.
is energy.
Absolutely.
All
Absolutely.
of a sudden, you find out that Lula is blocking. He was the one who blocking that.
Mhm.
His argument was that he blocked it because Maduro didn't hold his promise prior to the election that he will disclose the results. Well, hold on a second.
That's not Brazil's
That's
business,
not,
quite
first of all,
frankly.
yeah, that's one good point. And second, that is not enough reason for you
Mhm.
to. That's like somebody calling you a bad name.
Yeah.
Is that enough reason for you to kill the person?
No.
No,
No.
it doesn't work that way. And the same argument didn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And why is this? Because the mechanisms inside BRICS is by consensus, not
Yeah.
by vote. The same arguments I can make about India.
Yeah.
Why did India object to Turkey?
That's also a great question.
Why, you guys, do you think India
Yeah.
objected to Turkey? Let me just see before I give the answer. I'd like you to be part of the conversation here.
Well, and
guys.
I also
We
want
like
to
it.
know
Yeah.
you guys, I'm sure, put answers in here. We're not monitoring the chat.
No.
But I want to know what you guys think David should dress up for us for
Oh,
Halloween.
I thought you
put it
forgot
some-
about
No,
that.
I did not forget. I did not
Okay.
forget.
Okay, let me see here. What? Why, in your opinion, do you think India objected Turkey?
I'm gonna scroll up and see what people said about
Yeah.
you for Halloween.
Okay, you do that, and I look for the other, because it's very,
Oh,
very
no, where
important
is
to
it?
understand what's going on within BRICS and understand the decisions why countries make. So,
Mhm.
all right, let me. It takes a while. Why there is a delay for?
I don't know. I don't know. I
Okay.
don't know these things.
Anyway, PL, you said Venezuela is actually a very powerful country due to its resources. That is true. People like you. Thanks again. Delroy Riley, thank you very much, man. Appreciate it. So, Bill Justice. So let me provide the answer here so we can move on, because it will take us forever here. So
yeah. Sorry, guys. There's a lag. There's like a couple minutes.
It takes
lag.
a while, but here's the reason why. It's because India's argument was that Turkey is closer to Pakistan.
Mhm.
What they do, the two share in common, meaning Pakistan and Turkey, Muslim countries, right? So to India's argument ain't about the friendship between Turkey and Pakistan. It ain't about ensuring that the majority Muslim voice will not go, given what's
Yeah.
going on in India regarding the animosity against the Muslim minority inside
Mhm.
India. So Modi wasn't honest in his assessment about saying, oh,
Yeah.
just because Turkey is closer to Pakistan.
Yeah.
No. Oh, the same thing will apply to Iran. Iran is a Muslim country. Saudi Arabia is a Muslim country.
I will also
Egypt.
I
you
will
know.
also say that I think the EU
Yeah.
/ Western world / US has an active interest in making sure that Turkey does not join BRICS.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If
Uh,
go ahead,
no, because this point is very important,
Yeah.
because what happened during the time of the summit? Who visited India
Right.
right after? I think right after it. Yeah. Who visited India? None other than the German chancellor.
Right.
So when you think about Germany and you think about the
Mhm.
EU, who carries the weight in the EU?
Absolutely. I
This-
was straight up Germany. I mean, there's
Exactly.
no question. Straight
The
up
same
Germany.
argument I will make about Algeria.
Mhm.
Why Algeria was blocked from BRICS?
Yeah.
By whom?
Right.
Under whose orders? And you know what it was? At least what I found?
Yeah.
It was France. It was France that convinced India to block
Right.
Algeria. Because
Right.
if you know the history of France and Algeria, it's a long, bloody history between the two, and the atrocities that France committed in Algeria, in Algeria, that is, it makes sense. But to me, was the
Absolutely.
idea of, and this is what I've always argued, and I will
Mhm.
always argue this point, till BRICS comes up with a cohesive strategy in ensuring
Yeah.
how the votes are what's the word? Expressed.
Okay.
Because you can't do it through consensus. Consensus is not going to cut it.
Yeah.
Do it through the vote, majority rules.
Well, because if Turkey had joined BRICS, okay, like let's
Yeah.
say that Turkey joined BRICS,
Yeah.
the optics of that is terrible for the West. It's absolutely terrible to have a country choose BRICS over NATO, EU.
Yeah.
When you have, I mean, Russia's the giant player, right? Russia's the big bad.
Yeah.
And so to have an
A
EU,
NATO
a NATO member
Yeah.
jump ship.
Yeah. Yeah, but also Turkey's thinking about it in terms of economics. The
Sure.
massive amount of trade they're going to have with BRICS countries.
Turkey, though, is very interestingly playing both sides, kind of like India,
Well,
which is like
always
a little bit,
does.
which
Always
is
does.
a little
Always does.
ironic that it was India. But I definitely think, I definitely think
Yeah.
that that's
Yeah,
that
so-
that's the reason.
So
that
is the
India shot it
Saudis
down.
also playing both sides?
Yeah.
Because the Saudis, just go back a year ago or so,
Mhm.
how much they were pushing for this BRICS, and when they were put to test, because remember, guys,
Yeah.
during the summit, who visited Saudi Arabia? Tony Blinken.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
don't tell me that was coincidence. As
No,
one
it's
who
not.
worked
It's not
inside
coincidence.
Saudi Arabia and understand this dynamics when governments meet. As a matter of
Mhm.
fact, I used to facilitate
Yeah.
some of the communication between some high-ranking military officials in the U.S. with their counterparts in Saudi Arabia. But, so you kind of understand how the dynamics are, to the point that all of a sudden, Tony Blinken is in Saudi Arabia, and
Yeah.
the decision is made, and the Saudi government end up sending the foreign minister, not even
Yeah.
the MBS himself, which, by the way, the Russian president extended the invitation to MBS.
Yeah.
There are those who say it wasn't MBS decision, it was his dad. I can see the logic into that also, knowing how the dynamics in the Saudi royal
Mhm.
family. But also this tells me something else might be brewing inside the royal family, given how
That's possible.
nobody is liking MBS that jumped the line from all the way back to the front,
Mhm.
let alone his tensions with the three-letter agency
Yeah.
that he has. He's concerned about that, to the point that he disclosed that he feels his life in danger.
Well, I mean, considering the history there,
Well,
that's
yeah.
not unreasonable. I
Yeah.
don't think.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think the whole
it's not
big
rocket
picture.
science.
Yeah, but the big picture of it, for them to be stating, well, it's because geopolitical consideration. No, it has to do with the big concern that if the dollar stops being the only currency for the oil transactions around the world,
which is already,
it's very
already
problematic for us.
Absolutely. And here's the thing, like, I do not agree with the way that the United States goes about securing its interests.
Of course.
It's been horrific.
Well, we were doing it
It
the wrong
has
way.
been the absolute wrongest way maybe possible.
Yeah.
Spreading war, spreading fear, spreading pain and misery is the
Yeah, it's not
worst
right.
way possible to secure your interests. Let me be very clear about that. The United States is doing it in the wrongest way possible. However,
Yeah.
that does not negate how terrible they are at doing it. But the United States, just like all countries, are trying to secure its interests. And I understand that it needs to do it a different way. It needs to do it a different way, United States.
Yeah.
But they're trying to secure their own interests. And right now, BRICS, especially with the de-dollarization that's already happening, there's a lot of conversation about it. I mean, I remember learning about BRICS when I was in high school, and that it was like more or less a kind of irrelevant sort of thing that was there and they're together, but it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
BRICS is getting momentum. I mean, they're really getting momentum now that they have China having the economy that it does, like the growth that China has had.
$19.2 trillion economy.
Absolutely. Which is, and I think the US is like 26 or 27 trillion,
somewhere around that.
So so it's absolutely catching up.
It's getting there.
There's still a gap, right? But it's absolutely getting there.
Yeah.
And so I understand the United States being very concerned, and I do anticipate seeing this going forward. It's not like the United States is just going to be like, okay, here, you guys can have, you know, you don't need the dollar anymore. Whatever. Like, it's the United States isn't just going to sit back and be like, okay, well, you guys can just have all the power and all the money. We don't need any of that. No, the United States and the BRICS nations or China are, I believe, going to be going up and down like this. There is going to be the concerted effort on both sides, because whoever ends up on top, I mean, gets the leadership for the next, set of however many years.
Well, this is why you're seeing the two main locations where I foresee tensions getting even higher is the Taiwan Strait, of course, the South China Sea area and so forth, and the Euro-Asia location. Euro-Asia, with specifically, I'm looking at Azerbaijan for a reason for that. And the US will want to ensure that tensions remain in both locations. And this is why if it could facilitate the idea of not worrying about the Saudis transacting all their energy supplies in other currency beside the dollar, if they can take care of that, which in my opinion, this decision explains that the Saudis by not going for that. Doesn't mean Saudis will not cooperate with BRICS.
Absolutely.
It's just there will be some sort of limitations into because Saudis their security depends on the US. It's no different than what, for example, now the Israelis went ahead and established. Do you know where they established a base? On the border with Jordan. Think about it, guys. So it's all about the survival of those two monarchies, but that's a conversation for another day. Suffice it to say, the idea of where the upcoming elections here in the US, it will have an impact on the global economy one way or another.
Well,
and this leads us to the third point about the public debt, the global public debt.
Oh my God.
Because you can't ignore that one. You can't ignore that.
No, I'd actually like to do an entire separate show on on global debt. So global debt is very interesting because we talk about debt here in the United States, which is astronomical. Okay. It's not like the debt isn't astronomical here. I think it's at 37.
The last one I saw was 35.
Let's see. World debt clock. It's more than 35. I think it's at 37.
37?
The real time. Oh no, you're right. It's it's 36. So it's in between.
That was 35 a week ago.
It's 30. It's almost 36. 35.8. So it's like almost 36.
Oh.
Anyway, it's growing. So don't worry, it'll get to 37 soon. But the reality is that we think that it's just the United States that has debt, but it's not. China has about 15 trillion. Japan has almost 14 trillion. Germany is at 3.4. UK is at 3.8. So collectively, globally, we're looking at a trillion, 100 trillion, sorry, 100 trillion in global debt, in global public debt by the end of this year. So it's not just the US that's in this sort of very odd debt cycle. It's everywhere.
Just for us is very astronomical.
We're just the highest. We're the highest. And okay, so there's a couple of big problems to that, because there is a very strong argument that it's not actually the debt that matters the most. It's how much production basically the country produces, and that's really the thing that matters the most. Okay, cool, I get that argument. But if you're looking at all of these countries basically having to service debt, because at this point they have to service massive amounts of debt. When you have to service debt, that means a large percentage of your budget actually then goes to servicing debt instead of going to the public. So for example, in the United States, I think it's something like 35% of our budget actually goes to serving debt. That's a lot. That's a lot of money that doesn't go to public schools. That's a lot of money that doesn't go to repairing roads. That's a lot of money that doesn't go back into
the system,
which is what the government is there for. The government is there to take care of the country that you live in. And if 35% of that debt is going towards servicing of the budget is going towards servicing debt, that's money that isn't going back into the country. But it's interesting because this is a global problem. It is not just a US problem. If you're looking at China, let me see if I can share the US debt clock, or this is actually the global debt clock, which is very, very interesting if you guys want to see it. Let me add it. But China's at about 15 trillion. Can I add you? Share screen. Let's see if I can do that. Anyway, so I do think, interestingly enough, I don't believe that either side is interested, going back to the elections, I don't believe that either side is actually interested in reducing the debt in any way. I know that there's been some talking points a little bit about it, but for the most part, I don't think either side is going to reduce the debt. World debt clock. There you go. All right. Can you guys see that?
Oh yeah. Look at that.
Yep.
Wow.
So here you have the United States. We're at almost 36. Man, but I also want to look at public debt to GDP ratio. Or external debt to GDP ratio. I mean, look at China, Japan. We know Japan has been in this position for a long time. That's not new.
We put them in that position by design.
And they also put themselves in that position. This is a very I had
a conversation when I was in China. I was riding a bus, and I was sitting with the Japanese couple. They were very nice, very friendly, and we chatted about this, and we started to talk about their government, where they are, and all that stuff. And I said, do you understand what happened to your country back in the 80s, last century? He said, it was by design. And so they understood, some of them, not all. But Japan also allow itself for that one. So, but while you're talking about money, somebody came to my mind. We need to invite on this channel.
Oh, who?
Is Dr. Yan Liang.
Okay.
I know her. She's a professor of economics.
Very
smart lady, and she is also specializes in MMT, modern monetary theory. So she will be perfect one to explain this to us. So I'll reach out to her. Wonderful soul. I'll reach out to her and see what her schedule is, because she's busy. She teaches at the university, and have her come over, and we'll talk about this debt issue stuff. So
cool.
She really can explain that to us.
I love that, because if you're looking at it, I mean, look at especially like public and external debt to GDP ratios. I mean, so we're also looking at, so in the plus side, it's GDP. So you get to see the discrepancies between the numbers. At least China, the GDP is higher than the national debt. So at least that, but
but you also see it translated into what was outside. I was there. I saw with my own eyes. When you see the, and I'm not going to be sort of inflating how you guys know I don't stand for this nonsense stuff, but I tell you, did I see potholes in the street in China? I didn't. Now, I wasn't in the rural areas,
Yeah.
That's one thing.
That's fair. That's fair.
Hopefully my next trip will be into those areas because
Mhm.
I need to travel into those parts of the country to see. But at least where I was,
Yeah.
out of all the locations I've been in, did I see a potholes in the street? I did not.
Yeah.
Did I see clean streets? Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Did I see well-maintained bridges? Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Did I see the high-speed train and the maglev and all that stuff? So to me, it was the idea of here is where the investments is going.
Right.
You know, you walk into this area where I was in at the Bund in Shanghai. I mean, streets are like clean.
Yeah.
You know, but people also takes responsibility by not smoking and throwing the cigarette butts in the street.
Yeah.
There are trash cans everywhere. You put the trash, their orderly stuff, and so all this doesn't happen in a vacuum because the government ensures that whatever money they make,
Right.
they're gonna reinvest it, and that's exactly what China has been doing for the last 30 years.
Absolutely.
That's why they are where they are.
And I would like to say this because I get a lot of crap in the comments.
Yeah.
For like, well, you don't understand China and you whatever. I feel that I have a very balanced view of China. I give them credit where it is due, but nowhere is perfect.
Well, no system is
perfect. And
But-
I think it's important to
Yeah.
be able to be objective about your own country. Because there are people who would tell you right now that the United States is doing great. Okay, I know that's crazy.
Oh yeah.
But there are absolutely people who are saying the United States is still the greatest country in the world. The United States, 100%. I mean, we've lost friends over that, right? Saying that like the United States is absolutely the best. Okay. I think it is very prudent. That's okay. You can leave it.
I messed. I
You didn't
kicked
mess
the
it
camera with my leg.
I think it is very prudent
Yeah.
to understand that there is stuff wrong with everyone's country. It's not just the
Yeah.
United States that has problems. Everywhere has problems. And the first step to fixing whatever problems you have in your country is to acknowledge that they exist.
Identify it, yeah. But the problem with us is that we are not even limited to focusing on our own problems. Is we creating problems elsewhere?
The United States has
that's-
created misery
Well,
around
that's
the
where the
world.
issue is.
That's
So
just a fact.
To those people who are saying, well, the US, great, whatever. Yeah, they don't understand the nature of what we do or what we have been doing around
Yeah.
the world. And that is where, I lost friends too and kind of never expect that to happen, but it did. And I kind of,
Yeah.
too bad. That's to me tells me it was never a true friendship because
Oh, absolutely.
here in the
absolutely.
US, we use the term friend very loosely.
Mhm.
Very, very, very loosely. It's but life goes on. You move on.
Yeah.
But you're not gonna shy away from disclosing the truth.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I hear too. Well, you criticize I mean, heck, those friends that I knew were involved in the political spectrum in Washington D.C. and I got the word that like, well, you criticize the U.S. a lot. I said, no, I am
Yeah.
putting forth or exposing the truth, no more, no less.
But I will say, I think because I'm not getting crap for not liking the US. I'm getting crap for like the things that I say that are challenges for China.
Yeah.
And like if you cannot sit and be objective about your own country and be objective that your country has problems also, you have no hope of fixing them.
That's true.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, is the whole difference between the U.S. and China is that, and this is part of this conversation as far as the U.S. elections. Both parties, two faces of the same coin. Anyway,
absolutely,
they both converge on one particular enemy, if I may use the term, and that is China. Of course, Russia now, because there will always have to be an enemy, real or perceived. Absolutely, it's just going to have to be because that's the system here.
Yeah,
is based on that. This is the reason why you have to keep the population diverted. Its attention is diverted elsewhere instead of focusing on the shortcomings that exist within the economy, within the country, within the education system, within the health system, within just so many issues that ought to be addressed instead of focusing on the outs. I'm not saying you involved in being an isolationist. That is not the way the world works. If that era, which we did at some point, that was way back. the world has changed,
Mhm.
and we need to change with it because that's just part of reality.
Absolutely.
And to those who refuse to even listen to an argument like that, that tells me that they don't understand fundamentally what's at the core of the issues.
Yeah.
So,
Well, so I tell this story. I used to tell it when we first
yeah, yeah,
started the show, but it's something I think about every single day. And that so my grandparents in Poland lived through World War II.
yeah,
And my grandfather was very smart. He spoke 5 languages, brilliant man. But I asked my mom
yeah,
why he did not move my family
yeah,
out of Poland, because the part of Poland they were in was south. It was not the first place that got hit in Poland, right?
yeah,
By German occupation. And I asked her why they did not leave.
yeah,
He's so smart, speaks 5 languages. They had, he should have gotten them out. And she said it's because everyone in their town kept saying, well, they're never going to come here. It's just a small town. They're never going to come here.
mm,
It's never going to come here. It's never going to happen here. Don't worry. It just won't happen here. And so that level of denial about change and about what's coming meant
it's
that
what, yeah,
my uncle didn't live past 18 months. My
yeah,
other uncle also died. Like it meant that my family had to live through German occupation in World War II
yeah,
and die horribly
yeah.
um as a result. And there is a reality to this world, and it's not always kind, and sometimes it's very, very brutal. And to be in denial about things changing, or to be in denial that bad things can happen, they will
Yeah.
happen to you either way.
Well, that's part of life, you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, so you
You
kind of
don't.
just move with the day, and a good faith per se, and then you just do your best. That's
Yeah.
always been the but the fact is that for us here in the US is that assumptions that we will always remain this great, we always
Right.
remain. No, life doesn't go that way, and
It
and,
does
and
not.
like in the history of the empires, it's no different. What makes us I always look at this with the case of Afghanistan. And if you only know the history of Afghanistan,
Yeah.
how many major powers went over there,
Including
they
Russia.
couldn't.
Yeah.
Well, we're talking about even Alexander
Mm-hmm.
the Great.
Yeah.
Couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Way back. So, and for us, when we went in, because I made that argument to some colleagues back then. I said, why
Yeah.
do you guys think we will be able to defeat this?
Yeah.
And they were looking at me like I was speaking some foreign language. They didn't get it.
Right.
But again, they warning to the academia, understanding
Right.
the history of that part of the world. And it was just, it's a fact. That's just how history goes. And it's
Yeah.
no different for us. We are not the exception, the American exceptionalism. Well, maybe it was after World War II, but thanks.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
And this is where you see, for example, to those who saying what the BRICS will amount to nothing. No. It will amount to something because
it already is something.
The system that has been for over 50 years is coming to a close.
There's a power vacuum.
Yeah. And it's happening because of the idea of we just are not able to be that neutral, be that objective, be that rational player on the global stage that maybe we once were, but at the same time, it was short-lived. Because here's the thing that I did mention this before, and I'm going to repeat it once again. The whole decision about the conflicts wasn't made yesterday.
Yeah.
That decision was made in early 50s.
Yeah.
Well, what happened in early 50s? You think about the beginning of NATO. Yeah. Right after the beginning of NATO, that decision was made. To be exact, if I am not mistaken, 1952, the decision was made to get involved in conflict, not to win wars.
Yeah.
Because all the conflicts we were in, which were considered a war, they weren't a war, they were a conflict. Because the Korean War, Vietnam, Gulf War, Gulf II, Afghanistan, Ukraine, and soon to be in Asia, did we win those wars? No.
And you're right. The intention wasn't.
No, it wasn't never
win.
that, because that decision was made back then.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, when the MJ-12 we're meeting. If you only know who was in that club of the MJ12, that's where that decision was made, and that's where it becomes the infusion of the private sector, meaning the military,
absolutely,
industrial part involved with the government, and that's why Eisenhower speech had to be altered and changed by taking out the word congressional from the statements. We're supposed to state that. They took that out, and the rest is history, as they say. And this, to me, the reality that some of us are not willing to accept, because they've been under that notion, oh, we're always going to be exception. Not necessarily.
Well, and if it's if you look at it, neither of the candidates, right? So we have the two candidates that are up for presidential election next month or next week. Neither of them are talking anti-war. Neither of them. They have their conflict of choice, right? Like the Biden-Harris administration, and I mean, Kamala Harris, more or less, she came out and I know she's not saying it necessarily this way, but really she's just a continuation of the Biden administration, more or less, in terms of her policies. But their conflict of choice, their conflict of choice is Russia, Ukraine. And then Trump's conflict of choice is China, Taiwan. So, and both of their conflict of choice is Israel. So, and Middle East.
But in the case of Taiwan, is because of the AI upcoming stuff. That is the reason why.
Absolutely. And I'm so interested to do a dive into this for you guys.
We're gonna do live next week, guys, focusing on this particular topic.
Because the big tech of the world, that's Taiwan, is really important. Like, I cannot downplay how important Taiwan is.
It is, but I'll admit it, I wasn't very impressed when I was there.
That's because you didn't go to the microchip or semiconductor factories. You didn't go to the.
No, I didn't.
Which, of course, you wouldn't go to those places. I mean, that's not that's not a normal place to go. But I bet if you went to those factories, your mind would be blown.
Probably, yeah. But what I saw was the outside. To me, the basic infrastructures in comparison to mainland.
Right. Well, and that's the thing.
Very different.
That's actually part of Taiwan, is because Taiwan is not a big place, right? It's not a big country.
It's a big island.
It's
not a country, an island. A province, whatever. Actually, a province.
Taiwan. Well, I don't know. I have whatever. That's not the point. To me, that's actually not the point.
Yeah.
To me, the point is all of that is just also a distraction from what's actually happening, right? Is it a country? Is it not a country? Is it, is it China's? Is it not China's? To me, it's the same thing, because you're not looking at why Taiwan is important. Because Taiwan is not inherently important to the United States. If the United States cared that anyone was a free country or not, like how many countries in the world are oh no, I just went away.
Where?
I think then. Oh no, I just kicked me out entirely. All right, David, keep talking. I'll
okay. Well, whatever the camera was, so the idea of but yeah, it's just that's the way I see it, is to understand where this is moving forward, and most likely we're not gonna like the change, or we are not liking the change that is coming, but that change is coming whether we like it or not. And Washington, Brussels, London, Paris, Berlin, there's nothing they can do to stop that. It's just part of a course of history. So you only have two options: either to cooperate and work with that for the sake of humanity, or you resist it and created conflicts that could lead to some major destruction, that is. So, and I hope it's the former, not the latter. So for the sake of our humanity. So.
Okay.
Anyway,
question.
Yeah, let's.
Okay, I'm back.
I have one here from Army with Harmony. Good to see you as always. Question: is BRICS?
Did you put it up, because I can't see it?
Oh, show. Here we go. Is BRICS a threat to democracy? Short answer is no.
What an interesting question.
It is an interesting one. It's because the narrative that's coming out of the West suggests that the rule of law, no. That's what I'm saying. When the Saudis said it's because of geopolitical and the concern, no, because BRICS is not anti-West. BRICS is an alternative to the West. Two different things. two different things. So basically, countries will have options. Do you want to trade in US dollar, or you want to trade in some other currency that you feel comfortable with? Simple as that. So, and that's why I don't see BRICS as threat to democracy, because democracy in itself does not exist the way you and I understand it, or ought to be. If Aristotle warned about it 2,000 years ago,
Right.
what makes us think that we truly live in a true democracy? No, we don't. And there is no such thing, because democracy, in my opinion,
Yeah.
it's an illusion.
So I actually have a similar answer to that, right? So when we heard this throughout the Ukraine conflict,
yeah.
okay? Why did Russia invade Ukraine?
Yeah.
And why are we involved in that literally at all? And the answer was democracy.
To preserve democracy.
To preserve democracy.
It's ridiculous.
Nothing says democracy more than Ukraine not holding elections because of the conflict. Nothing says democracy like making sure the people don't have a choice in who their elected officials are, right? But nobody talks about that. So the word, it's like the tag word. The tag word is democracy, right? Like, why are we involved in anything? Democracy. But the reality is here. And man, there are people who will fight you tooth and nail on this, okay? But they're like, well, my vote matters because it's democracy. And I always say, is it really a choice, or is it the illusion of choice? Because if you had every single person to choose from in the United States, US, native born, whatever, United States citizen to choose from, would you choose either of these two people? And the answer almost always is no, you wouldn't. You get served up a handful of people that the establishment has already served up to you, given to you, and you have these to choose from. Is that really democracy? If we really had democracy, wouldn't we have another party? At least one other party that made any kind of sense to make it truly a fair democracy. And so democracy seems to be kind of a buzzword without any real teeth behind it. So, I mean, if you hear they're gonna take our democracy, what does that sound like to you? Right?
And like Muslim Revert wrote down, it's selected versus elected. Those are individual selected, that is. So
and Army with Harmony, how about restricting speech? How democratic is that? Right? That's ridiculous. And that's rampant right now. I'm hoping we don't get flagged for this show.
Yeah, it's ridiculous that such thing exists to begin with. So let's take another question from Timeline Dunkley here. So, do you think European Union countries went to China to ask to join BRICS secretly, and China said no? To my knowledge, not the case. To my knowledge, was about bilateral trade with China. It's because they know they are not getting much with the US, given the policies being imposed on them. You take the example of Germany. Germany has no independent foreign policy. I'll tell you this based on knowledge and facts. UK, to some degree, does not have an independent foreign policy. France still push back sometimes, but for now, Germany does not. So the trip that Meloni of Italy made to China, Olaf Scholz to China, and I think who else went to China? There were two other Europeans, one over to China. The Prime Minister Sanchez of Spain went to China. All of them were aimed at one thing and one thing only: bilateral trade with China. Because they know the sheer size of the Chinese economy can be ignored.
Oh, absolutely not.
The second thing, they also know that it is just a matter of few years before China overtake the US economy. It's going to happen one way or another.
I think that's true, and I have reasons to back that up. But
so that is the reason why. Will the European Union wake up to really what's going on? No, because they just can't. When you have 35,000 troops on your soil, that's optics of it is not good. So Germany, it's a little long. Germany now is dealing with immigration issues
Oh, huge
internally,
immigration issues. Yeah.
and the tensions with the other EU members like Hungary. Because
Mhm.
why Hungary pivoted towards China,
Yeah.
Serbia pivoted towards China, the tensions with Turkey.
Mhm.
It just to me, just the last leg of the Western hegemony is coming to an end.
Mhm.
It's just a matter of accepting that reality and figure out
Yeah.
how to transition to the new era.
Yeah.
Whether through cooperation or through tensions. And if you do through tensions,
Yeah.
we all know. I mean, don't expect China to be kind and nice if its interests are threatened.
Absolutely.
Simple as
Absolutely.
that. So this is
Yeah.
why we're fermenting more in that part of the world
Mhm.
through Philippines.
Yeah.
We're pushing Philippines over the cliff. We're pushing Australia over the cliff. We already
Mhm.
had Japan and South Korea in the hole to say,
Yeah.
to state it that way. So because there is that notion that when I was walking inside in Taiwan and all that stuff in
Mhm.
Taipei, and I'm looking, just you get a feel for the temperature of the social
Yeah.
society
Yeah.
or the population, whatever. The young generation have no clue
Yeah.
about the severity of a conflict between the U.S. and China.
Yeah.
They just and I've been around long enough to know what to look for.
Yeah.
But the young generation, they're very, very, very different.
So I will say, so first of all, I would like to well, okay, I'll answer this question first. But I think, David, I think you're absolutely right. Like, everyone is looking at the war between the United States and China, which is ridiculous. I mean, I understand that, we have two very large competing economies, but the economies are very tied together. But if the EU were to lose the favor of China, I mean, most of the stuff from EU comes from China too. So it's not like the EU can extricate itself from China,
No.
but it's not like the EU can extricate itself from the United States either. They're in a middle position.
Yeah. What China will do, if I am to think long term,
Mhm.
what China will do is to strengthen its ties, economic ties, which it's already doing, but
It's
even
trying, yeah.
more with the entire global south.
Yeah.
Because in that case, you don't need the EU anymore. You don't need the American market anymore.
Well, and so I don't know if you'll ever. The United States is a huge market. So
Yeah, but
it's going to take a hot minute for it
of
to
course, yeah.
not be relevant.
Yeah. But you
yeah.
think about the population in the global south versus that of the US.
Yeah.
I mean, numbers don't lie.
No, absolutely.
That's what I'm saying.
But numbers are also not, because like India is a really great example of this. They have a large percentage of their people in poverty. But I will compare this to United States because it's the middle class of any country that is really the large purchasing power.
Yeah.
Right now here in the United States, our poverty levels are growing. And I know that the current administration is like, no, it's getting better.
No, it's not.
Inflation is getting better.
No, it's
Don't
not.
worry, guys. Inflation is getting better. And I have but nobody believes that, right? And so why does nobody believe that inflation is kind of going away? So the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, is talking about, well, it's getting better, everything's getting better. But they're excluding the fact that the average American has almost $40,000 in consumer credit card debt, which the average interest rate for that is, I think, 22%. And so you're looking at the average person having almost $40,000 at 22% interest in credit cards.
Wow.
And so now everything that you possibly had the ability to pay for, not that everything's not wildly more expensive than it was before, but now your purchasing power has decreased substantially. So it's stuff like that. It's stuff like, like the insurance that you have to pay for your car or your home, that's not included in the Consumer Price Index. And so those things aren't considered. And it's those things that are starting to, if your car insurance went from, $75 to $210,
it's problematic.
It's problematic.
It's going to become
budget,
very
right?
expensive to live in the US.
It is. It's so expensive
and that's
to live
why
in the
a lot
United
of people
States.
now are moving out.
Yeah.
moving out of the US. So
Everyone who can get out is getting out. And if it's for no other reason, and it's not just the United States. I speak French fluently, so I follow French. I follow a lot of French media also, and French people are also doing the same thing. I mean, people in the higher cost places in Europe are also moving to lower cost places because the quality of life is decreasing substantially.
All right. Well, I guess we answered all this.
Well,
we do one more question.
I want to address something because Taiwan isn't a country. I see you.
Yeah,
You've been following. The screen name.
Yeah,
you've been following us for a long time, and I see you in here talking about like, I don't know my own country. I don't know whatever. Here's the deal. First of all, if you are stuck in the conversation that is being pushed on either side, you are missing the point entirely. It's the same as the Republican versus Democrat, in my opinion, the Republican versus Democrat argument here. It's that you can look at all of these talking points all day long. You can look at, is it a country? Is it not a country? But the people in power, they don't care. They care about whatever their bottom line is. And if you're not paying attention to their bottom line, you are looking at the distraction instead of what is really happening.
All right.
So that is my tirade on that
note. So we'll be addressing this topic next week. So we're gonna do that, but not from this one. It's from the AI aspects of it. So we'll do the research for it and prepare it, because it takes a while to do the research for this. You all know, guys, it's just us. Nobody will be very kind of you if you want to support the channel. It's just us, literally. There is no outside funding for this. And it takes a lot to put this stuff together. So producing a show, sometimes it might seem easy to some, just for us sitting in front of a camera rather, but it takes more than that. So your support for the channel is greatly appreciated.
I will say this a different way. You guys have been asking why we don't have more shows, and it's because it takes a lot of money to run this show, which is maybe it doesn't look like that if you're not on that side, but your support really does matter to us. And honestly, if you want us to make more shows, please support us more, because that's really
they'll do it. To those who can afford it, they'll do it, because they know the nature of the information we share. So you all know the difference. I mean, I don't need to tell you guys. You've been around long enough to watch many stuff on YouTube. You can tell a difference between. I'll let you reach that conclusion yourself. So
also G guest, I see you. Lena Petrova. Okay.
No, we'll figure that out as we move forward.
Not. So. Do you want to take one more question?
No, that's it, because we've been long enough on this. We look forward to seeing you guys next time. As always, prepare yourself for the changing world order. Till next time. Bye.